So you're really into this whole idea of living a more balanced life, and this abundance wellness hub stuff you shared really seems to hit on that.
Yeah, it's interesting
Like
stuff.
they're all about making self-care a part of your everyday life.
Right, and not just, like you said, facials and spa days.
Exactly. Unless that's your thing, then by all means.
Totally. But they ditched that whole treat yourself mentality
Yeah.
and really seem to focus on self-care as essential to a fulfilling life.
It's kind of refreshing, actually.
It is. They're basically saying, what if you could design a life you didn't need to escape from?
Okay, now that's a concept I can get behind.
Right.
And they break it down into like morning, midday, and evening rituals, and even weekly rituals.
Exactly. And it's, detailed without being overwhelming.
I like that.
For example, they have this thing called a gratitude power hour.
Okay, so it's not actually a full hour, right? Because
No.
that would be a lot.
It's not about spending an hour every morning just on gratitude.
Okay, good to know. So what does a gratitude power hour actually look like then?
So think about dedicating that first hour of your day to doing things that really energize you.
Okay.
So, instead of reaching for your phone first thing in the morning, maybe you jot down 3 things that you're grateful for while your coffee brews.
I can already feel the stress melting away.
Right. Or maybe instead of scrolling through social media on your commute, you swap that out for listening to a motivational podcast.
I see.
It's about being really intentional with your time and energy from the moment you wake up.
Yeah, so instead of letting the day just happen to you, you're kind of setting a positive tone right off the bat.
Exactly. And they don't stop there. Abundance Wellness Hub also really emphasizes the importance of mindful breathing exercises.
Yeah, that's something I've been wanting to get better about.
It doesn't have to be this big, complicated thing either.
Right.
They suggest taking even just a few minutes each morning to just focus on your breath and quiet your mind before all the day's demands start to creep in.
Yeah, it's like that moment of stillness before a big race or something, just taking a second to gather your focus and energy.
Exactly. Now, once you've kind of set your intentions for the day and found your center, they shift gears to what they call nourishing nutrition.
So I'm guessing that's where they really connect food to self-care.
Exactly.
It's not just about what you eat, but how you eat.
They're all about this idea of mindful eating,
Yeah.
savoring each bite, paying attention to the flavors and textures of your food. And they even go so far as to suggest creating a really calm and inviting atmosphere for your meals.
So no more eating lunch at your desk.
Well, it's more about transforming mealtime into this more mindful and enjoyable experience.
Yeah, and let's be honest, how often do we actually even taste our food when we're rushing through a meal?
Yeah.
Guilty as charged.
Right.
And they're big on staying hydrated throughout the day, which seems simple enough, but I know I'm bad about it. It's the foundation. And they emphasize that it's not just about chugging water either. Like, they suggest carrying a reusable water bottle with you as like a visual reminder throughout the day to stay hydrated.
I like that. It's almost like a self-care ritual in itself.
Right.
So besides staying hydrated and being mindful about meals, I noticed they mentioned something about balanced nutrition, too.
Right. And they're not pushing any kind of specific diet or anything,
Okay.
but they encourage you to think about fueling your body with intention, just like you're fueling your mind with those positive thoughts.
Okay, I like that.
So think lean proteins, healthy fats, plenty of fruits and veggies.
It's about making choices that support your well-being, mind, body, and soul.
Exactly. Now imagine you've sailed through your morning, you've fueled your body with these nourishing foods. How are you feeling by, say, midday?
Well, if I've followed the Abundance Wellness Hub method, I'm feeling energized, focused, and ready to take on the world.
I love your enthusiasm. But even with the best morning routine, we all kind of hit that midday slump sometimes.
And that's where their what they call midday pause comes in.
All right, let's dive into that because I have a feeling we could all use a little more of that in our lives. A midday pause, huh?
That sounds dangerously close to sneaking in a nap under my desk.
Yeah.
And my boss might not be too thrilled about that.
Well, I don't think Abundance Wellness Hub is suggesting you go full-on nap time in your cubicle.
Okay, good.
Although, don't get me wrong, power naps can be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
This is more about just like hitting the reset button on your day. Like they suggest just taking like 5 minutes to do a little meditation, release some tension.
I can see that. I mean, even just like closing my eyes and taking a few deep breaths at my desk can really help when things get a little overwhelming.
Exactly. It's all about finding those little pockets of peace in your day. So whether that's like a quick walk around the block or listening to your favorite song, or even just like stepping away from your desk for 5 minutes to stretch and just clear your head.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in that to-do list and forget to, come up for air. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they also suggest maybe use that midday pause to do a little reflective journaling.
Okay.
It's amazing what just like a few minutes of jotting down your thoughts and feelings, how much that can actually help you process your day.
Oh, I love that. It's like a mental decluttering session.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, let's fast forward. End of the day, you've conquered your to-do list, you've enjoyed some mindful meals, even managed to squeeze in a midday reset or two. Now it's time for the evening wind down.
Okay, see, this is where I tend to fall apart. Like, my brain hears the words free time, and it's like it decides to replay every awkward interaction I've had for the past decade.
Oh, I hear you. But this is where Abundance Wellness Hub has got you covered. They have a whole section on creating an evening routine that actually signals to your body that it's time to unwind.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
First and foremost,
Mm.
ditch the screens. They recommend at least an hour of screen-free time before you actually go to bed.
Easier said than done, but I know they're right.
It's tough. But that blue light from our devices, it can really mess with our sleep.
For real.
So instead of that mindless scrolling, they suggest swapping it out for something a little more relaxing, like reading a book or taking a bath, spending time with loved ones.
Okay, so picture this. Instead of my phone lighting up my face at midnight, it's a good book and a cup of chamomile tea. Much better, right?
Right. It's about creating those rituals that promote relaxation and better sleep.
Totally.
They even suggest incorporating things like aromatherapy or some gentle stretching into your evening routine.
Okay, you've sold me. Now we've covered morning, midday, and evening rituals, but Abundance Wellness Hub doesn't just stop at those daily practices. They're really big on the whole weekly ritual thing too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's about zooming out a little bit and incorporating self-care practices that really nourish you on a deeper level. Replenishing your reserves, as they call it.
Replenishing my reserves. Okay, that sounds amazing.
Right.
So what kind of rituals are we talking about here?
All right. Brace yourself. They suggest a weekly digital detox day.
A whole day without screens? I mean, in this economy.
I know. Sounds radical, right?
Yeah.
But they make a really compelling case for it.
Okay.
They argue that being constantly plugged in, it leads to burnout and anxiety,
Right.
and it can even mess with your sleep.
Okay, they're not wrong about that. But a whole day. What am I supposed to do with myself without my phone and my laptop for 24 hours?
That's the beauty of it. Abundance Wellness Hub wants you to use that time to reconnect with yourself and the world around you.
So what does a digital detox day actually look like? Like, do they give examples or?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Like they suggest spending some time in nature.
I mean, I've heard that can be really grounding, being out in nature.
Right. It's like hitting the reset button on your nervous system.
Yeah.
They also suggest using the time for some creative expression.
Ooh, I like where this is going. Tell me more.
Now, they're not saying you need to become like a master painter or anything.
Okay.
It's more about finding ways to just tap into your creativity and express yourself freely, whether that's journaling or gardening or playing an instrument, whatever brings you joy.
Yeah, it's about making time for that side of ourselves that we often, push aside when things get busy.
Exactly. And now, along with the digital detox and creative expression, Abundance Wellness Hub also really emphasizes the importance of social connection as a key element of self-care.
Yes. This is a big one. I feel like social connection is often overlooked when people talk about self-care.
Right.
We tend to focus on all those solo activities like the bubble bath, meditation, that kind of thing. But nurturing our relationships is just as important, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And they're very clear that those meaningful relationships are essential to our well-being.
So how do they suggest we actually weave that into our self-care routine? Like, what does that look like in a practical sense?
Well, it's not rocket science. It's
Yeah.
basically advocating for spending quality time with the people that matter most to you.
That sounds simple enough, but are there specific strategies they recommend? Because let's be honest, sometimes even just finding the time for social interaction can feel impossible.
Right. No, it definitely takes effort. They encourage listeners to really be intentional about actually scheduling time for loved ones, just like you would any other important commitment. And they emphasize it doesn't need to be this grand gesture. Sometimes a simple phone call or a walk in the park is all it takes.
So it's about being present, engaged in those interactions, even if it's just for a few minutes, putting down the phone, silencing that to-do list in our heads, and just really, truly being with the people we care about.
Absolutely. And they're not just talking about romantic relationships either.
Oh, okay.
They emphasize the importance of nurturing all types of connections. So family, friends, colleagues, even your neighbors.
It's about creating that sense of community and belonging, which can be so nourishing, especially these days.
Yeah, absolutely. They also highlight the importance of setting healthy boundaries as part of nurturing our connections.
Okay, that might seem a little counterintuitive at first, but I can see how it all ties back into that bigger picture of self-care.
Mhm.
Sometimes saying no can be the ultimate act of self-love.
Exactly. It's about protecting your energy and making sure that those interactions with others are actually life-giving.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from those morning rituals to digital detox days to the importance of setting those boundaries. Abundance Wellness Hub really does offer a comprehensive approach to self-care. But before we wrap up this deep dive, there's one thing I wanted to touch on that you mentioned earlier, engaging with our
Oh,
community.
yes. That's an important one. And while nurturing those individual relationships is key, Abundance Wellness Hub really argues that engaging with our community can provide this really profound sense of belonging and purpose.
I can definitely see that. But what does engaging with your community even look like in the context of self-care? It's not like we're all signing up for the local bowling league or anything.
You'd be surprised. But no, they're not just talking about joining clubs or organizations. It's broader than that.
Okay.
It's more about finding ways to connect with something larger than yourself, whatever that might look like for you.
So it's not necessarily about the specific activity, but more that feeling of connection and contribution that it provides.
Exactly. So that could be volunteering your time to a cause you're passionate about, attending local events, connecting with like-minded people online, or even just like making an effort to get to know your neighbors.
It's about bridging that gap between our individual lives and that larger community we're all a part of.
Precisely. And they make this really compelling argument that that sense of belonging and contribution
Mm-hmm.
can be so fulfilling
Yeah.
and ultimately a really powerful form of self-care.
Yeah. It's like that feeling you get when you help someone in need or give back to your community. It just feels good. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into Abundance Wellness Hub, what are some key takeaways for our listener?
I think the biggest takeaway here is that self-care is not selfish.
Right.
It's an investment in your overall well-being.
Yeah.
And it's about creating those rituals and routines that nourish your mind, your body, and your spirit.
And it's about finding what works for you.
Right.
Not every practice is going to resonate with every person, and that's okay.
Exactly.
Abundance Wellness Hub is all about encouraging experimentation and exploration. It really is amazing how Abundance Wellness Hub ties all these different facets of life back to self-care.
Right.
It's so much more than, just those stereotypical things like bubble baths and meditation apps.
Yeah.
It's about creating a life that feels balanced and fulfilling, like on every level.
Yeah, it's a really holistic approach.
Yeah,
And it makes you realize that self-care is already present in so many little ways throughout our day,
it is.
often in ways that we don't even realize.
We just have to sort of open our eyes and see it and then make those intentional choices.
Right. And sometimes that means, making choices that might seem a little counterintuitive at first, like setting boundaries in our relationships.
Yeah, and that's something we talked about earlier. Abundance Wellness Hub really emphasizes that sometimes saying no can actually be a form of self-care.
It is.
It's about protecting your energy and
Yep.
prioritizing our own needs.
Absolutely. And realizing that we can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
If we want to show up for others, we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves first.
Yeah, it's like that saying about the oxygen mask on the airplane.
Exactly.
Put your own mask on first before assisting others.
It's not selfish, it's essential.
Hmm.
And when we do prioritize our well-being, we're so much more capable of actually showing up for the people we care about in those meaningful ways.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. Abundance Wellness Hub gives us such a practical and, actionable roadmap for actually incorporating these things into our lives.
It is. It's very refreshing. And they really managed to break down this whole concept of self-care into these really manageable steps.
Right.
It proves that you don't have to completely overhaul your entire life to make a difference.
And they offer such a diverse menu of rituals and practices that there really is something for everyone.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, what resonated most with you? Like, what are you going to try first?
Honestly, that whole gratitude power hour really stuck with me. Yeah.
I love the idea of, starting the day with intention and gratitude and just setting a positive tone for the day ahead.
Yeah, it's so simple, but so powerful. And honestly, even if you just take one or two of these rituals from Abundance Wellness Hub and incorporate them into your routine, I'm sure you'll feel a shift.
100%. Well, listener, we hope this deep dive into Abundance Wellness Hub has given you a renewed sense of just how important self-care really is,
Yeah,
and that you feel equipped with some practical strategies to create a life that is both fulfilling and sustainable at the same time.
absolutely.
And remember, self-care isn't about being perfect at it. It's just about making progress. So start small, be kind to yourself, and enjoy the journey.
Yes.
And on that note, we'll wrap things up for today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.